Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Doreen Downing, and I'm host of the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast. Having been a psychologist for way over 40 years, I am always fascinated with human behavior and how people get to be who they are. And today I have a beautiful new friend that I'd like to introduce you to, Fabienne Slama. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, that's correct.
Good. And because she's a new friend, I didn't know how to pronounce her last name, but thank you. And I'm going to be reading her bio in just a moment. But first, I just want to communicate that I am already having little shivers on my body because I do know some of her story. And not only is it about her own journey to be more of the beautiful woman she is today, helping others find who they're meant to be. Fabulous is the name of her program. But she also has some information and some ways of linking intergenerational trauma. And I'm hoping we'll get to uncover some of that and hear from her about that today too. Right, Fabienne?
I look forward to follow your guidance, and I know the universe will take us to the right place. So very excited to be here today.
Oh, wonderful. Let me read the bio you sent me. And Dr. Fabienne Slama, aka Fab, is a Renaissance woman. She started her professional life as a biochemist for the French Atomic Energy Commission. After moving to the U.S., she became a sculptor, creating sensuous and strong women in bronze and concrete. In 2012, a divorce left her penniless and so heartbroken that she contemplated taking her life. Discovering the power of the subconscious, she bounced back in 3 months, and 3 years later, she had published 4 books and was at the head of her 6-figure company, Fabulicious. Today, as an unhypnotist, her mission is simple: wake up high potential women and empaths from the big lie that they are not enough and help them move from stuck to unstoppable so they can share their light at home, at work, and into the world. I love all three, their light at home, at work, and into the world, especially into the world. And I feel like that's our platform today for you to step into, Fabienne, is to share your light here out into these airwaves.
I'm so excited to be here on this path with you, because that's what we need today. We need to shine the light into the world more and more. That's the only way we're going to make this planet a better place. And we all need that at this moment.
Well, when I met you, that's exactly how I felt about you. And that's why I was excited that you accepted my invitation to come share yourself, your light, is that on this Zoom call, here we are, however many people, maybe 30 or so, and there you are in your little square shining your light. And I noticed you. Isn't it
Yeah,
amazing?
it is so exciting. And at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm doing it. People don't realize I present myself as Fab
Yes.
and Fabulicious and all this shiny energy. And sometimes they're like, oh, it's easy for you. No, 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 no. I'm extremely shy.
Oh,
And it has not been easy to be comfortable shining my light, except that at this point I know there's no other choice.
uh-huh. Yes.
And by me shining my light, I know my message might impact someone who will turn the light on. And it will be this web of connection we can create all over the planet and really change the message of who we are and what we want to do into this world.
I love the vision that you've just presented, and it's like a magical and it's mystical and it's shimmering. Shining, shimmering, splendid, as one of the characters in Aladdin sang a song, shining, shimmering, splendid. But let me go back, because yes, it's true, we are dropped into this world as shining, shimmering, splendid beings, and something usually happens either from the past that we're bringing in, I guess, genetically, or in some ways intergenerationally. But so tell us, you've got this wonderful accent, where you were born, where you grew up, and anything early history, because I do know that there's some challenges as a young girl. So
Yeah,
start there.
there's so many. So originally I come from France. That's the accent you hear. And actually my family is not even from France. My family is from North Africa, Tunisia. And my journey, I would say, started 5 generations ago, when my great-grandmother was invited at age 14 to a wedding. They told us, get dressed in beautiful dress, because today is a wonderful day. You're coming to a wedding. Except she didn't know it was her own wedding. And she was married to a man who was 60-year-old. Little girl as 14 married to a 60-year-old man. She didn't have a voice. She didn't have a choice, except that she fought pretty hard to find a place for herself. And I really find she is in some way my inspiration, because yes, she was put in an environment that was very difficult, but she created a place as much as possible for herself. And from this marriage was born a man who didn't know his role, who married a woman who didn't know her role. And this couple ended up having daughters after daughters after daughters. And daughter number 6 was my mother.
Oh.
And when my mother was born, they look at her and say, oh, another little piece of shit. And they turn around and say, does somebody want her? There was an aunt, a couple, aunt and uncle, who didn't have kids, and they say, you want her? Take her. So my mother grew up with this fear of being seen as a girl, fear of being voicing her voice even as a newborn, as a girl, because she knew that it might be taken against her. And she grew up fighting for her life and grew up that way. So times go, and here I am, born into the world in totally different circumstance, with a father and a mother who love me, and at the same time with all this message being present in my genetic, not knowing what it was, and that feeling that something was off. Because something we forget, kids believe what you tell them.
Yes.
My mom, for me, until the age of 12, my mom was an only child, and she had 12 sisters.
Mm.
I didn't know the truth, but I believed her. I believe it was possible. So when you have those messages that are put in your psyche and that are incongruent, you grow up with them and you don't know what to do with them. And you go into life as a kid, hoping for the best. So as I
naturally you come into this world, it sounds like, as a kid, just like we all do, bright-eyed and eager, and then that's your mother. The mother has a history, and a very long history that, like you say, intergenerationally has kind of choked a woman and has made her less than, I was going to say less than a man, but just even less than anything,
yeah.
no value. And so for you as a young girl then, what was your experience?
My experience as a young girl was, you know how kids are born? They're born with two feelings. I like it, I don't like it,
Yeah.
and I'm curious.
Uh-huh.
So the first two feeling I like it, I don't like it. But very quickly, the third feeling that is put into a kid or that comes naturally into a kid is this curiosity. And I'm blessed to be extremely curious.
Yes.
So I came into the world like, okay, let's see what happened. I don't know, I don't understand, I don't know what is the truth, what is not the truth, but I'm curious. So curiosity brought me to this point where I wanted to learn about everything. I wanted to learn about life. I wanted to discover the world. I wanted all of it. And I learned. Everybody will put something in front of me, I will learn. Except that when I was 5 years old, somebody said, oh, who is this girl who is learning everything? She's 5 years old, but she knows how to read. She knows how to write. She knows how to make addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Oh, that's strange for a 5 year old.
Uh-huh.
Why don't we study her and push her? So they put me from pre-K and they made me skip one grade into kindergarten as a 5 year old. Okay, after a week there, they were like, oh, she does pretty well. Let's push her to first grade.
Oh my goodness.
So here I was as a 5 year old, put in a total different universe where, yes, I was smart enough, but emotionally, energetically, all the other kids were different. And I remember they were running so fast and I couldn't run as fast as them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally broken. I'm bad. And it was not the case. It was just that I was not mature enough.
Yes.
To do all the things. So that was probably one of the first time in my life where I was like, being smart, talking up and showing what you know is dangerous. So I shut it down. On top of that, my parents moved every year. So each time I was arriving at the beginning of the school year, I was entering a new classroom. New kids, like, hi, I'm Fabienne. And you know how it is to be the new kid in the classroom?
Yes, it can be uncomfortable and people could be teasing you, and
oh yeah,
that's the newcomer syndrome for sure. Yeah.
the newcomer. So it was like, okay, I can come with this beautiful smile, and if they like me, good, but if they don't like me, they will let me know. So very quickly it was like, okay, show yourself, but don't show yourself too much. And if you show yourself, don't show the most vulnerable part of you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and if you did show the most vulnerable part of you, what then?
I was teased.
Uh-huh.
I was put down. as I grew up, the more the year will go by, the more the age difference was difficult. Because when you are 6 and 8, yes, it's different. But when you are a 12-year-old with 14-year-old, you're a kid in a world of about to become young adult.
Yes.
And their desire of life is not the same. And if you show up, they have all this desire of exploration and being cool. And I was still a baby. I was still immature. I arrived into college, I was 16, moving to college on my own, living on my own as 16-year-old, and not knowing how to relate as a teenager with those adults.
Right.
So it was interesting. It was exhilarating in some way, but it was frightening. So I was always on this dance of being visible, being invisible, being visible, being invisible. And really being very cautious about what I will share and what I will not share. Because I never know what will be used to my advantage and what will be turned against me.
Well, already in just listening to you, Fabienne, I get how self-aware you are, and that you have a deep, you've integrated a lot already in terms of self-knowledge and being able to listen to yourself, understand yourself. And so it seems like that kind of quality that you have with, you called it curiosity in the beginning, but like a gentle curiosity about yourself. And I'm not hearing being, down on yourself or hard on yourself. It's more fascination with your history. And I feel fascinated.
Yes, the name Fabienne comes from the word the fava bean.
Oh,
And that's something I discovered by total chance. I was looking for it. People say, "Oh, Fabienne, you come from where?" And found out it was about the fava bean. And for me, the fava bean is this plant, like any bean, that grows and find a wall and say, "Okay, what direction can I take now?" Until there's a next wall, and you find another direction. And I think that's the way I've been growing all my life. And over the years, each time there was a wall, it's been, what's next? Yes, it's not pleasant to be stuck. It's not pleasant to be hurt. There's moments when you literally bang onto the wall and it's heartbreaking. But when you can transform this block into, okay, I'm blocked, I'm crying, no, what's next? That's where I think for me, I would say that has been my biggest wisdom and what helped me in any adventure in my life, any challenge in my life, that's what allowed me to bounce back.
yes, I like that analogy and the visual that you just did. For people who are just listening, you put your hands out and you actually did a wall, and your hand hit the wall, and then it kind of slid up, and that the growth that you've been able to do was natural. So I'm going to take a quick break because I know that there's a story about hitting a wall that I would like you to share. So we'll be right back.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com.
We're back today, and I have already been so inspired and thrilled by the way that Fabienne has talked about herself and her life, her history, all the way intergenerationally, going back to a grandmother at 14 years old who was married to a 60-year-old man. My goodness. And then the history that where Fabienne comes from in Europe, I guess it was France, and but she did move to the United States somewhere along the line, and I know she's been married, and there is a story, I guess not such a happy story, but there is a story about your divorce.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you read my bio and all the journey that I took to get there. So, my journey as a healer or as an hypnotist started 12 years ago when, at the time, I had been married for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And one day I received a call from my husband who was in business trip. And he told me, Fab, I'm so sorry, but I'm not happy. And I want us to get divorced. In 3 days, I'm coming back from my business trip and I'm packing my stuff and I'm leaving you. Mm. It was heartbreaking. It was, in some way, I thought I didn't know about it, but at the same time, I realized I had been sick for the previous few months. So probably my body knew about it before I knew about it. Yeah. And I literally hit a wall because yes, we were married for 20 years, and yes, our relationship was not perfect, but whose relationship is perfect? And I was justifying it, and I was finding a lot of excuse to not see the unhappiness that was going on. And when he called me, it was so heartbreaking that I was like, I have to stop this pain. I don't know what to do. I don't have a job because I had left my job as a biochemist behind me. I don't have the money to support myself. I have 2 teenagers and I don't know how to raise them. And he was the love of my life in my mind. So I was like, oh, what I'm going to do? And I remember it was so hard that I will wake up in the middle of the night, smell the fear on my clothes. Mm-hmm. And it was so painful that I wanted this pain to stop. So I went through the cabinets in the house, the medicine cabinet, and I found 40 Vicodins. I had problem with my back in the previous year, and I found 40 Vicodin. I Googled what you can do to yourself with 40 Vicodins, and honestly, you need only 20 to hurt yourself.
But it sounds like you counted them.
I counted them. I Google. I'm a scientist. You know, I'm a little bit of hoo-hoo, but I'm the scientist. It's like, okay, let's find the solution to the problem. And I sat the whole night with those pills in my hand, considering swallowing them and crying. And it was not about my kids. It was not about anything. It was just, I want to stop the pain. Until at some point when I was too tired of crying, I heard this voice in my head saying, Fab, if you swallow those pills, you know how it's going to end. Yeah. Don't you want to know the end of the story? And I told you, I'm curious. So yes, this voice that tell me, don't you want to know the end of the story, was what triggered me. And I was like, yes, I want to know. So I went into the bathroom and I tossed the pill right away because I knew that was this instant, this magical instant that I had to take care of and advantage of. And I tossed the pills into the toilet and I flushed them. And then I look at myself in the mirror. I say, okay, what do you want, girl? Now you told me to listen to the end of the story. What is the story that you want? And I went from there. So to find the story, I needed to find a way to bounce back on my feet, to stop crying. I reach out for help. I find a hypnotherapist. And once I decided to bounce back, as I said, you read in the bio, it took me 3 months to bounce back.
Well,
It was
that's not very long, let me tell you.
that's not that very long. No, but
Uh-huh.
there was this time before
Yes.
of healing, and when I'm ready, I'm ready. You know,
Okay.
you listen
When you're ready, 3 months is 3 months, and
it was working on myself day and night. I wrote a whole book during those 3 months.
yes. Uh-huh.
And I reached out for help, and I did all these things. And when I say 3 months, 2 months back on my feet, it was to take care of the first layer.
Yeah.
Let me be clear to the people who are listening to this interview. These layers, it's been over 10 years and there's still layers.
Yes.
So it's a journey,
Uh-huh.
but it's never as painful as it was at the beginning. And it's so important to accept all those layers. And each time you go through another layer, you're learning something and you're growing. And I keep on growing. You know, I go and I hit a wall, and yes, I slide and I go to this next direction. So I know your podcast is about finding your voice. And at the beginning, when I was talking, it was very tentative and I was trying to be perfect and do it right. You know, the good student, that was a part of me. And at some point, I realized that if I was trying to be perfect, it will never happen. So I went a little bit sideways and say, okay, let's do it. And then somebody told me, oh, but you have a French accent. People will not understand. Okay, that's a wall.
Yes. That's a
And
wall.
then,
Yeah.
and then it's like, do I want to see this wall or do I want to go around? You know what? The people who want to understand me will understand me. So here we go. But my mom was always on stage, and I don't want to be like my mother. Oh, another wall. Or if I'm seen as a woman, I'm going to be crushed or criticized. Another wall. That's the thing, those walls exist. Those limitations exist. And each time, even coming into this interview with you, Doreen, even though we connected so well, was like, can I go through this other wall? But there's no other choice. Maybe it's going to be perfect, maybe not, but it will happen. And that's the way I see unstoppable. You talk a little bit earlier about taking people from stuck to unstoppable. Unstoppable is not perfect.
But you keep on growing. You keep on growing, and that's what your message is so clear today, especially what you just said about the layers and the learning and the growth, and that. So we're almost out of time. So I want to make sure and that people really get. I mean, I think that people can already get your bright energy and what you offer in terms of your attitude towards challenges, that you believe that any challenge somebody could come at and learn from and become what they're more of what they're meant to be. So before we go, I just really want to give people a chance to hear more about the current work that you do and where to find you.
The current work that I do is taking people from stuck to unstoppable, and there's few way I do it. I do it one-on-one. I do it through group. I have a retreat coming up in October in south of France, where that is all based on becoming limitless. And the way we do this work is a little bit about healing the past, but mostly coming from the future point of view. and seeing what is possible. The way to contact me, I want to give the most possible, the most I can to people who are listening to this podcast today. And I thought it hard. I have written a book called Stuck to Unstoppable, the 13th step to connect with yourself and shine your light. And I would like to offer them the possibility of downloading the ebook so they can read it and learn about those 13 steps.
Oh, thank you. We'll for sure put that in the show notes.
Yes, and it is about transformation. It's about being gentle with yourself and grow and learn and go to the next level. And when you reach the next layer, yes, there might be another world. So what? Once you have the tools, you can grow again and again and again. And every time you go to this next level where it's easier or it's differently challenging, but it can be fun, actually. That Fabulicious is about fun and delicious. I really believe that life should be fun and joyful. And
So is fabulous and delicious, is that what the two words come together?
yes, so
I just found that out.
It's fabulous and delicious, and at the same time it takes my name, and if I'm fab and so are you, and life is supposed to be delicious and fun and joyful. Nobody has time to be miserable.
Yeah.
Nobody, and I certainly not me, and I don't want that to for any of my clients. I love when people have the tools to take care, to address what's going on within them. And when they finally learn that they can do it over and over and over again, and it's not bad. It's not I'm failing because I'm going to another challenge. It's I'm going through another challenge. It's another layer. What am I going to learn from this layer?
Well, that's really a good place to stop then, is with that question to have, hey, listeners, what are you learning today from Fab? And what can you take from what you've just heard? And do you have challenges out there that are part of your own growing process? So thank you so much, Fab, for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here. And thank you, Doreen, for really allowing all of us to share our message.
And share your light, right?
And share our light, absolutely.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person Doreen interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.